tell you, and to make them awesome, I require Paul and Storm!
That's not grape juice, is it?
This is not grape juice. This is excellent Oregon beer.
So, this was originally written for a column that I wrote for the LA Weekly, and it is about me being a little kid, experiencing an event that sort of shaped kind of the rest of my adult life, as most events that are worth writing about that occurred when you were 6 are. I'm going to tell you a story about that time I made a sandwich. It was pretty good. Peanut butter tore right through the bread. I grabbed an extra water bread and I jammed it into that hole in the bread sandwich there. I patched my bread. And that's when I found out we were out of jelly.
Sandwich hacking.
And I learned on that day that sometimes, even when you patch a hole in your sandwich, you're still going to be out of jelly. Thank you. Good night.
I like how you Wonder Years did at the end there.
It's a Wil Wheaton story. What are you talking about? All right, so this is called This Is the Way I Remember It. And to borrow a phrase from one of my great writing influences, William Goldman, not that it matters, but most of this is true. When I was 6 years old, I set foot onto a T-ball diamond for the first time. I was skinny, awkward, and unsure of myself. I was basically a smaller version of the teenager I'd eventually become. The adult I'd eventually become too, minus the beer belly. I didn't have very good coordination. Still don't. Dex is my dump stat. But my dad loved baseball. And I knew that if my dad loved it, then I loved it too. Because that's the way things work when you're 6. It was the spring of 1978, when smog alerts were as common as reality shows are today, just as annoying. A hazy, reddish-gold sunlight shone down on the field at Sunland Park. The sounds of other kids playing on the swings and in the giant rocket ship at the playground mingled with the smell of barbecue smoke as I stepped up to the plate to take my first practice swings.
We're talking baseball, little Will is playing talking baseball. He's such a little slugger.
My first swing connected with the middle of the tee. The baseball, in those days of gas lines and national malaise, we didn't have those soft, reduced injury factor balls my kids got to play with, fell off and landed in the batter's box on the other side of the plate. The other kids giggled while the coach clapped his hands and shouted encouraging words to me as I picked the ball up and put it back on the tee. I looked up and saw my father's expectant face through the chain link fence near the dugout. I slowly and deliberately lifted my bat, held it out at arm's length, and aimed at the top of the tee with one eye closed. I stuck out my tongue and furrowed my brow. I tasted sweat on the corners of my mouth and felt my heartbeat in my ears. The bat touched the ball, and the ball fell off again. The kids giggled, the coach clapped. I replaced the ball on the tee. "Come on, Willow," my dad said. "You can do it." I took a deep breath, held the bat as tightly as I could, and swung for the fences.
Talking baseball, everybody's watching talking baseball. It's getting kind of awkward.
The ball sailed off the tee toward right field. I watched it go, absolutely astonished that it was in the air, just like a real baseball player. "Run to first, Will, run fast!" It was my dad, excitedly hollering at me through the fence, joy in his voice. I dropped the bat and ran to first as fast as I could, my Trax shoes kicking up small puffs of rust-colored dust the whole way.
Talking baseball, starting to get the hang of it, talking baseball. I'm sure this will all turn out well.
"That was great, Will," the coach said. "Okay, who's next?" I went back to the dugout and watched the other kids bat around. Most of them were more successful than I was, except for one kid named Brian, who had glasses, perpetual bedhead, and a nose that only stopped running when he jammed his fingers into it, which was all the time. Brian was last. He hit a grounder to short, and the coach gathered us together at home plate, where he told us to take a knee. I looked around uncertainly until the kid next to me kneeled down. Oh, my 6-year-old brain thought, take a knee. Neat. I took a knee, and I looked up at him. He had the kind of beard and sunglasses you'd expect to see on a suburban Little League coach in 1978, or Jonathan Colton on stage today. He wore a dirty baseball jersey with yellow sleeves. That was great, everyone, he said. Now we're going to hit some balls without the tee. What? The thought of a ball being thrown at me filled me with dread. Wasn't that the whole point of T-ball? Avoiding a ball being thrown at you? I looked for my dad as I walked back to home plate. We made eye contact and he must have seen how terrified I was. You'll be fine, Willow, he said. He smiled. He was proud of me. But he believed in me.
Talking baseball, he needs some reassurance. Talking baseball, don't be such a pussy.
I stepped into the batter's box and picked up my bat. I held it high, pointing it to the sky, just like my dad had showed me in our front yard. I looked at the pitcher's mound, where the coach's son, a big kid named Kenny, got ready to deliver the ball. Kenny was a year older than me, and probably outweighed me by 15 pounds. He had shaggy, long hair, kind of looked like a male version of Tatum O'Neal in the Bad News Bears. He began his windup, and I lost my nerve. I looked up at my father. Dad, I'm Skip! The ball hit me in the side of the face, just above my left cheek, with a soft smack that sounded like a gunshot inside my head. There was a collective groan from the other kids and a few gasps from the adults. I fell to the ground and burst into tears.
Baseball, subdermal hematoma. Talking baseball, should have put it up on YouTube.
My dad ran out onto the field, helped me up and inspected my face. There wasn't any blood, and it didn't look like it was going to bruise. Like most childhood injuries, the fear was worse than the actual wound. The coach asked me if I wanted to try again. I'm sure there were kids who would have bravely stood up and tried again, but I was not one of them. I shook my head and hugged my dad. Kenny had joined us. I'm really sorry, he said. It's okay, I mumbled. I think I'm going to take him home, my dad told the coach. Okay, he said. We'll see you next week. When we got into the car, my dad took a closer look at my face. You're going to be okay, he said. We'll put some ice on it when we get home. 2 miles, 1 stoplight, and 3 stop signs separated the park from our house. By the time we got to the 2nd stop sign, I was completely under control. My face stung a little bit, but that was it. My dad put his hand on my shoulder and he said kindly, you just took your eye off the ball. Next time, the whole thing flooded back to me. Kenny's wind-up.
What kind of 7-year-old throws like that?
The ball speeding at me. The sound it made when it crashed into my face. I burst into tears. I don't want to play baseball anymore. I cried.
Talking baseball, young Will sure was a crier. Talking baseball, I do when you play your baseball.
I'm sure my dad was disappointed. He played baseball from grade school all the way to college. Baseball, Dodger baseball specifically, is more than a game in our family. It is religion. Okay, he said gently. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. Maybe you can try again next year. I didn't try again next year. Or ever. I wasn't going to be good at baseball. But that was okay. Because my dad accepted me as the cerebral, geeky, awkward kid who just wasn't that good at or interested in sports.
And the cats and the cradle and the silver spoon.
He respected that I just wasn't competitive, and that I was happier pretending to be an elven wizard leading a group of adventurers into a dungeon to fight beholders than a kid nobody wanted on their team standing on a baseball field hoping the ball didn't ever come anywhere near me. The most important tool a writer has is his imagination, and it's pretty important for actors as well. Seeing as how I support my family by doing both, I'm grateful that, as a child, I was encouraged to embrace the things I love that also happened to help my imagination develop. Because in my imagination, I am one hell of a baseball player.
Especially